our next session and the final one for this hall is the creator perspective on how brands can thrive in the creator economy. And we have two really exciting speakers for you, Caspar Lee and Luke Barnes. So without further ado, I'd really like you to put your hands together for Caspar Lee and Luke Barnes.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'll let a few people filter in and out so you can hear us. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking 15 minutes to listen to myself and Caspar talk a little bit about all things creators and influencer marketing. So what we're going to do in those 15 minutes, so it will essentially involve me. I'm Luke. I'm the president of EMEA at Influencer, discussing some key insights from Influencer's most recent research report with my colleague and boss, Caspar Lee, OG YouTuber, co-founder and chief vision officer of Influencer. So before we jump into our discussion, I just wanted to give a tiny preamble to the next 15 minutes, make a little bit more sense to all of you listening in. So Caspar and I work at influencer.com. We're a global agency. We're on a mission to shape the future of marketing by humanizing brands. And we do this by harnessing the power of creators. Now, many of us in our industry spend hours and hours upon end talking with brands and advertisers about how they should work with creators, how to maximize their investment in them, or how to measure the return on that investment. But so rarely do we invite the creators themselves to contribute to that conversation, which is kind of insane. So in our latest report, titled Creator Perspectives, we flipped the script. And we wanted to bring those creators from the executional periphery to the center of how brands build their creator marketing strategies. In this report, we used a combination of AI-powered social listening and global quant and qual surveys with over 500 creators of different shapes and sizes to create what is essentially a playbook that is designed to help brands thrive when they engage with the creator economy. And it's this report that's going to form the basis of a polite little discussion that Caspar and I are going to have. So with that, I'd like to turn to one of our first key insights from the report. Now, I think we feel this in our day jobs, but the creators reflected this back when we spoke to them. There's a lot of optimism about the creator economy, and 72% of the creators we spoke to feel positive about the future of the platforms that they work in, and generally about the kind of economy as it stands, and building their careers off of it. However, for most, being a creator is still a side hustle. So 88% of creators do it as a side hustle. It's not their full-time job. And even amongst the what we would call hero or megastar creators, only 25% of them are making content full-time as their main source of income. And obviously that goes even lower with the smaller creators. So it is still a hustle. And there is a professionalization journey that the creator side of the economy is still going on. Which I think is a really interesting insight when it comes to how brands approach them. So Caspar, yes. What's it like being a creator right now?
Well, there's a lot going on when you're competing with people like Daisy for attention. No, it's great. I think when I started in 2010, that number was 100%. And then we went down this road of creators becoming slightly more and more professional and people becoming full-time creators, and I was lucky enough to be one of them. And it now feels like the creator economy is going to a place where even if you are a full-time creator, you still want to do something else with your life. You can't just be an influencer about being an influencer or a creator about being a creator. Of course, you get some comedians, you get some really attractive people, these sorts of genres, maybe that's all they do. But the majority of creators we work with, they're people who actually have a life beyond just the content they're creating, and that's what really makes them interesting. And I think that, if you'd ask a lot of these creators, would they like the ability to be a creator full-time financially? Yes. But would they still do something else alongside that? Probably, because a lot of the biggest ones go on to start other things. Like myself, I wanted to start something else beyond just being a creator, so I had something to talk about.
So does that mean that this kind of idea of being a professional creator is actually kind of just misguided or super elusive?
Well, no, I think it means, a professional creator to me is someone who turns up, responds to a brief, does things in a timely manner. I think most of those, a lot of those people that we work with can be like that, and I think it's super important over time to collate the data on what creators are very professional to work with. But in terms of creators being full creators, and that's all they do, they always need a story additionally to that. So yeah, I don't think people should discriminate between a creator who is full-time or not full-time. Ultimately, I think part-time is actually one of the best ways to do it.
So what does that mean for brands, do you think?
Well, it means, as I said on the data, I think it's really important as a brand to know that when you're working with creators, you're not just working with a click of the button of buying media. You're working with real people who have schedules around not only content, but also what else they do in their lives. So they're all very different to work with as well. They also speak fairly different languages. I'm not just talking language, I'm talking about the way they interpret things, the way they look at briefs. And so over time, the more you work with creators, the more you can learn about their styles and the ones that work for you and your brand, the ones that are quick at responding, the ones that are really professional. And these are the sorts of things that you can really build up over years of experience. And it's really important to collate that data and not just do a brand deal, move on to the next one. You've got to use this information that's beyond what you find on the social platforms to your advantage.
And do you think brands can like leverage that somewhat hustly nature, or that maybe less professionalized or less kind of like, I guess, clean aspect of it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. I mean, I think one of the main reasons brands work with creators isn't just the reach. That's obviously super important, but it's a way of humanizing themselves, entering into communities. And for creators to be taken seriously within communities, they can't just be, they actually have to also be a part of those communities. So by working with creators, you're generally going to be working with these people, and you can take advantage of that by, working with the ones who understand the space. And actually, obviously, you can work with them just on social, but there's really cool things we've done with creators where they come on board as like ambassadors, they come into product development sessions with brands, and they really kind of become that human element of the brand, which audiences are looking for on social.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think one of the challenges that comes with this kind of professionalization journey that we're on is kind of our second insight, which is we did see this kind of, or at least this illusion of a disconnect amongst the creators that we spoke to. So what we saw was that when we asked creators which KPIs they prioritize themselves when they're measuring success, they placed engagement number 1, and they placed creativity number 2. However, their perception was that brands had a different prioritization. Engagement was still number 1, but creativity was much, much lower down the list. So creators doubt how much brands actually value their creativity. And further to that, there seems to be a kind of a pain point around misaligned expectations. So those expectations could be around creative constraints, it could be around unrealistic deadlines, excessive content revisions. There just seems to be areas where the brands and the creators are misaligned, and that is causing friction. There are some other ones around sort of finances and payment, but like kind of the execution of the campaign seems to be an area of concern. I guess to try and dig into this a little bit to see what of it is real and what of it is just, a communication issue. Caspar, let's maybe look at it glass half full. What was your best experience working with a brand as a creator, and why?
Okay, well, are there any Americans in the room? Okay, so when I talk about Maltesers, I'm not talking about the dog, I'm talking about the chocolate. Okay, cool. Because I was in America and I spoke about this story, and they were like, you put a bunch of dogs into a car? What the hell are you doing? So I was working with Maltesers, and I was doing this prank war at the time. I was in the middle of this big thing with my friends where we were like pranking each other back and forth on YouTube. And they said, what do you want to do? But you have to make it around this and that, which was important because I like a bit of constraint, but I also like the idea that I can be creative and fit the brand into my content series that I know is going to do well. So I filled a car to the brim with Maltesers. Don't worry, they were the ones that were going to get thrown away because they were defected. I didn't know Maltesers could be defected, but apparently they're perfectionists. And yeah, that was a really kind of fun moment. We literally had a crane, we had a whole crew, and like my audience was like, this is cool. Like he was able to do something with a brand that may have taken itself very seriously, may not have wanted to engage directly with his content style, and they were able to help him make that video and prank his friends. So that was a great memory. For sure. And
what role did the brand play in making that such a positive experience?
Well, I think the first thing was they listened to me, they understood my videos, they understood that their messaging could still work within this. And whereas a lot of brands might go, oh wow, like this is, we want you to do exactly this. We have like this creative brief for our campaign, and every creator should just follow it rather than us coming up with a custom idea per creator depending on what works for them. Mm-hmm. So I really liked how I was able to help meet what they were looking for, and they could come and meet what I wanted, and the audience really saw that, because they knew that this was like something that could only happen with a conversation between me and the brand, rather than it being a massive campaign where I'm just a creator within that.
So then what, it can work. But what do you think is driving some of these misaligned expectations in the experiences our creators surveyed were referring to?
Yeah, I think when it comes to creativity and influence marketing, like sometimes when I see the word creative and like it being constrained, it depends what they're trying to say, right? Because it could be like, I'm not able to do the most creative out there thing in the world. Or it might be like, I can't actually do something I know creatively will work. And I think they're talking about the second thing, which is, hey, like, we don't have to do something absolutely crazy. We can actually fit your brand into a model that I know works with my content. That could even be a carousel post. That could even be a video that is a 9-second recording. But what I do see in brand deals a lot of the time is everyone's trying to do massive reels. They always want it to be reels. And they always want it to be very edited, and they always want it to be slightly more high quality production. And that's usually when you can tell someone needs a bit of guidance, and you need to say, look, this doesn't fit into this creator's kind of patterns. This is actually content that could work. And just because it doesn't take 3 days to edit, it doesn't mean it's not going to be way more effective than the video you have planned. So in terms of creative constraints, it is hard, though, because you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders who have a lot of goals, and they don't want to make any mistakes. And to give that over to a creator is difficult.
Well, I think that leads nicely into the third insight that I was going to put up, which I think when we've showed this to some of our clients, they literally breathe a sigh of relief. Because the truth is that whilst we have this kind of age-old church versus state debate, control versus freedom, the truth is when you ask the creators, they don't want a blank canvas. They want a map, as we put it. 58% of the creators we talk to prefer brand guidelines to follow. 21% are neutral. Only 21% prefer complete creative license. And so, Caspar, where do you sit on this spectrum?
So I get what they're saying here, and I think it's slightly nuanced. I think they definitely want guidelines because that at least helps you to get inspiration. I think it's really hard to be creative without somewhere to start. But I also think a lot of this comes down to them not wanting to have 50 revisions post creation, content creation. And if you just go on your own merry way and then the brand comes back and goes, you completely missed the spot or the mark, it can be really tricky, especially when it comes to editing and filming in real life. And maybe you've got something very magical and they're like, can you just change that? And it's like, we're not all Daisy. We can't just change everything using AI. We have to actually refilm it, reshoot it, and we might miss a bit of that magic. So I think it's about everyone understanding exactly what you're about to do before you do it. And actually, on the discussion of AI, I think that becomes really useful when it comes to storyboarding, when it comes to kind of showing something what you're about to make before you make it. I think that's really useful, and it really helps us when we're at Influencer to align on what the brand wants, what we know is going to work, and what the creator understands by that. And then you don't have to have a million edits. You can actually just get the content created, and it can be done within maybe 1 or 2 revisions.
So what would that key bit of advice you would give to a brand looking to try to interpret this data point and trying to kind of really get the most out of their creators from a creative perspective?
Yeah, I think obviously it's important for your campaign creative to be followed within the campaign. You can't just say, hey, just talk about me, just talk about my brand. You have to, it's your brand, but it's also what is the point of this campaign? And that's something I think we speak about as well in the creative perspective report is also try and share with the creator what you're actually trying to achieve with this within the wider marketing angle. Because creators actually do care about that. They want to know whether or not you're after story clicks, or you're after brand uplift, or you're after saves because maybe you're selling a product that isn't an instant purchase. These sort of things are important, and it might sound boring when you're writing it out in the brief, but we actually discovered that creators really care about this stuff. And I think giving creators examples is a really helpful way to interpret what you're trying to say. So again, when we're working with creators, of course, there's a lot of text involved and communication via text. Perfect. But what's also really helpful is actually showing something that you're like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, or this is what I'm looking for from the content you've already created. That really gets creators going when you've actually done some research on what they're good at.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, I would love to continue this conversation, Caspar, and I'm sure we will.
I just got a mic, so it was just about to...
Well, maybe we can start again from the top. But our 15 minutes are up. I think we'd, whilst, we'd love to keep showing you the entire 50 odd pages of insights that we've got as part of Creator Perspectives. I'll spare you all that. Instead, direct you all to influencer.com, where you can download the full version of the report. Also, you can register for some of our own events where we'll be going even deeper into some of those insights. And for the brand marketers in the room, we'll even design bespoke workshops for you and your teams to go in depth into some of these insights, workshop them with your team and come up with practical frameworks and solutions to help your engagement with creators and get you allow you to make much more out of the creator economy at large. So thank you again for listening. Thanks, Caspar, for joining me up here, and enjoy the rest of your day.